If you're someone who gets attached very fast, who worries a lot in your personal relationships, maybe you worry about being left or being abandoned or not being good enough for the other person, or you find yourself obsessing over one particular person long after things should probably be let go of, or if you already know that you're someone with anxious attachment, then this video is going to be very relevant to you. In my last video, we zoomed out and talked about how complex trauma can turn love into an addiction. Today, I want to go in on one specific pattern inside of that, anxious attachment, and why it is so vulnerable to limerence. In fact, it is the attachment pattern that is most often associated with limerence and with being chronically limerent, meaning going from one LO to the next, to the next, to the next. Because if you are an anxiously attached person, the issue is not just that you catch feelings quickly. Underneath that, your nervous system is set up to equate closeness with safety, which automatically means that distance equals danger, right? Distance feels like I'm not safe anymore. So when someone shows up who triggers limerent feelings in you, that intense, obsessive, hard to control, fantasy-driven infatuation, that dynamic doesn't just feel romantic, it feels like the last train out of where you are emotionally and the one that you can't afford to miss. In this video, I want to walk you through what's actually going on underneath of that. Why anxious attachment and limerence go together so strongly, what you're trying to fix or fill when you become obsessed with someone as an anxiously attached person, and why it's so important to begin over time bringing some of those needs back to yourself instead of trying to get all of them met externally through each new person you meet. We're not going to fix attachment in this one video. That unfortunately is not how this works. But my hope is that through these conversations, you'll be able to see how your tendency to become limerent or to become enamored very quickly and throw yourself into love with an intensity that doesn't actually lead to good, stable relationships, you'll be able to see that more clearly for what it is. Not as proof that there's something inherently wrong with you or with your needs, or that you genuinely need certain people at the cost of yourself, but as a very loud expression of your own attachment wounds, sitting there, waiting to be understood and worked with. Quick, simple, what limerence is. So, because this is a new series, for those of you who have just come across this kind of video on limerence, or for those of you who don't really know what limerence is unfortunately not just a crush. Think of it as an exaggerated, super intense, obsessive infatuation, mostly emotional, but also a mental addiction to one particular person. The end goal of limerence is bonding to a much desired and much adored person, but it's an overzealous and compulsive need to do so. In this kind of addiction, your brain is constantly living in a fantasy version of what your connection to this person could be like. So you spend a lot of time fantasizing about future moments with them, you replay your interactions with them, you check up on them. And some people go as far as stalking or checking social media obsessively, scrolling their old posts, going through old messages. A really important part to mention about limerence is that the feel-good chemicals you get from interactions with this person can actually show up just from you thinking about them. You don't have to know this person very well at all or interact with them much at all. Limerence can happen over a celebrity. It can happen over someone you met one time at the local library. It can happen over a coworker you've only exchanged a few words with. Or it can happen with someone you've actually started a relationship with. So there are different degrees of involvement, but the important part is that a big chunk of limerence is made up of your own thoughts and fantasies about this person, what they think of you, how they react to you, how they perceive you. In limerence, you're very self-conscious, very self-aware, and very tuned into their reactions, their moods, their attention. It's basically a hyper-vigilant, hypersensitized, obsessive kind of infatuation. And because you're getting all these feel-good chemicals, both from your fantasies, from your own thoughts and ruminations about this person, and from whatever contact you have with them, whether it's a little bit or a lot, it becomes extremely sticky and really hard to step out of. Essentially, it becomes a real addiction to a person with typical hallmarks of addictive behavior. One last really important thing to know about limerence is that by and large, it's a connection that has uncertainty, ambiguity, and instability built into it. If a connection is solid, or if two people are mutually limerent and actually able and willing to be in a real relationship, limerence usually fades quite fast. It's important to know this because in the next section, when we talk about anxious attachment, you'll see why this built-in uncertainty, this whole structure of is this real or is it not, fits so perfectly and so painfully with anxious attachment. So why is anxious attachment so uniquely vulnerable to limerence? Because your attachment pattern developed with a very strong wired-in link between connection and safety. On a deep level, your core belief is something like, if I'm close to other people, if I'm close to a caregiver, a lover, a partner, I'm okay. Your inner sense of okayness is largely dependent on the people in your life who you expect can meet your needs. That means that if there's a distance between you, as someone who's anxiously attached, and the people who are supposed to love you, to pay attention to you, to care for you, then you don't feel safe. So you learned early on that being hypervigilant, tracking other people's moods, keeping other people close to you emotionally and physically was how you would get your own needs met. Well, this means that a lack of consistent connection automatically feels like something dangerous, like something unstable. Your body interprets it as there's something wrong here. I might be about to lose this person. I might be abandoned. And that's part of your core fear. Now, if we drop that wiring into a limerent connection, which almost always has ambiguity and uncertainty as part of it, things like ghosting and pulling away and mixed signals or gaps in communication and connection, well, you can see why this creates the perfect storm for the anxiously attached individual. This kind of connection is not secure. It's not stable. It's not certain. So it constantly pokes at your existing attachment wounds. It's also part of why you tend to attach so strongly to avoidance. Avoidance let you play out your old dynamics of seeking connection, of seeking reassurance, of seeking clarity with someone who is hesitant and inconsistent or perhaps ambiguous about really connecting to you. And it's one of the reasons you often become limerent over avoidance or people who are outright unavailable. It's also very common to become limerent over people who are deeply wounded themselves. This might include people with narcissistic traits, or people who are highly emotionally volatile, or people with their own unresolved trauma and unstable attachment patterns. So it's not random that you end up limerent for emotionally avoidant people, or for people who are chaotic emotionally, or very inward focused, or completely unpredictable in their behavior with you. On a nervous system level, these kinds of people are a perfect match for the story that your own attachment pattern already knows. I have to work really hard to keep love close, or it will disappear, and no one will be there to meet any of my needs. If you're anxiously attached, part of your core belief is that you can't really meet your own needs anyway, or at least you're not supposed to. Your nervous system is organized around the idea that your needs have to be externalized in order for them to be met at all. So you grow up not very good at meeting your own needs, or you grow up with the idea that even if you tried, it wouldn't work anyway. You need another person. So your needs have to be met from out there, from the outside. And because you weren't really taught to self-soothe or to validate yourself or to feel safe just in your own person, when limerence does show up, the fantasy component is huge for you. The the thought of somebody finally coming in to see you and hear you and protect you and look out for you is this incredibly validating, almost complete feeling experience. Because for you, it doesn't just mean I like this one particular person. Limerence is not really about the other person. It means maybe through this person, I can finally have someone carry all of these needs that I have inside of me that I don't know how to meet myself. So it means you get to have these core needs met by externalizing everything, which is what you do anyway. And so it gives you the illusion of I don't actually have to meet my own needs as long as I hang on to this person. I don't have to figure out how to make myself feel safe. You will do it. You will protect me. You will make this emptiness and this void inside of me go away. So for you, limerence becomes a way to reaffirm the self-abandonment that you already know so well as an anxiously attached person. And it makes it so that instead of learning slowly and gently how to turn toward yourself, you hand the entire job of meeting your core needs to this other person because no one ever taught you how to meet those needs yourself. And I really want to say that this is not some weird defect that only you have. If you're listening to this video and you recognize yourself here, this is a very common part of anxious attachment. Many of us are anxiously attached. I myself started out as a fearful avoidant. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself, you're not uniquely broken in some magical way that is unfixable. A lot of us grew up like this, especially when we grew up in homes where we were neglected or ignored or traumatized or abused emotionally or physically in some way. We never learned how to meet our own needs. And limerence for us becomes the place where that old pattern can express itself in the loudest, most intense and obsessive way. And because as someone who's anxiously attached, you're already so externally focused, always scanning other people, always trying not to be abandoned by them, not to be really seen by them so that they will leave you, it comes with a very high cost. And the cost is that you don't really know yourself very well. Your identity tends to be obscured even from yourself. I'm not talking about, oh, I don't really know what I like to eat for breakfast, or I don't really know where I like to go on vacation. What I mean is that you don't really understand your own emotions very well. You have trouble being in touch with what you're actually feeling. You have trouble processing your emotions, understanding your own fears, your own needs on a day-to-day basis. You have trouble being in relationship with what actually calms you and soothes you, and with your deep values, your boundaries, your own desires. Because a lack of relationship to yourself means that you grow up with this sense of emptiness or incompleteness inside, a constant feeling that something is always missing, and that missing thing cannot be met by you. It has to be met from the outside. And so your brain, your nervous system, does what it knows how to do. It tries to fill the void by reaching out, by externalizing. This is why limerence for you is such a demoralizing experience, and it feels so sharp and so painful when you're anxiously attached, because you already have this built-in void from your own attachment pattern, and it comes with a huge desire to have it met from out there, because it's very hard to live with that emptiness. And the way you try to meet it is by always reaching outward, often by attaching very hard and very insistently to whoever provokes the most intense emotions in you. This is also why for the anxiously attached, limerence is so common. Because you're so externally focused, it's really difficult to feel settled in yourself without having this constant project in your life of trying to get your needs met by someone else. Which is why when one limerent episode ends, you tend to latch on to the next one and the next one and the next one. You can go from one limerent episode to the next for your entire life, because your nervous system doesn't know how to feel okay without being in pursuit of a person who might finally meet your needs. you can see why it's so important for you as an anxiously attached person to learn how to meet those needs yourself. Before we wrap up today's video, I want to say one more thing about why limerence usually doesn't turn into the relationship that you're hoping for when you're anxiously attached. We're not going to go super deep into this here because I think it deserves its own video, but I want it on your radar. If you are anxiously attached, you're not just bringing a big nervous system and a big heart into limerence. You're bringing a whole set of limiting beliefs about yourself and about love in the form of beliefs like, I'm very easy to abandon. If someone were to really see me for who I am, they would leave me anyway. I have to prove myself, and only then can I be worth having a relationship with. I'm too much, I'm too intense, or I'm not enough, and I have to constantly find ways to make up for that so that a partner will actually accept me with these flaws that I believe I have. And when those limiting beliefs are running in the background, it's very hard to relax into any relationship that starts in that limerent place. Even if something does get off the ground, you're perpetually bracing for the day when this person that you've elevated up on a pedestal finally sees too much of you and walks away. You have all of these expectations about how this person can meet your needs, but it's actually very hard for you to settle into being in a real grounded relationship with them. Because you're trying to use the relationship to heal your own attachment wounds and to finally prove that you are lovable, that you are worth staying for, that you're not too much, while those same wounds are quietly boycotting this super intense attachment that you've now formed, whispering in the background that this can't possibly last, this can't be a safe connection. And that's a big part of why limerence rarely turns into a solid, steady relationship that you need. I'm going to do a separate video just on those anxious attachment beliefs and how they feed limerence, and another one on what it actually looks like if you can start turning your attention inward as someone who's anxiously attached, how you can slowly start meeting some of your own needs instead of externalizing them to another person or another person after that. For now, if you recognize yourself in anything I said today, let me know in the comments. I read all of your comments and I really do take them into account when I plan these videos. If there's something in particular that you care about and you want to learn more about, just let me know. And if it feels helpful listening to these videos, consider subscribing, because we're going to keep unpacking anxious attachment, attachment styles in general, complex trauma, and limerence and love addiction in the next few videos as part of this series. We'll start talking about what healing actually looks like from the inside out and where that deep need to attach obsessively to other people might be coming from. Because the answer to healing is usually found right here, right in yourselves. Until next time.